Divorce sucks, but it doesn't have to define you. You're not alone, and you're not powerless, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. Welcome to The Difficult Divorce, a podcast that cuts through the drama and confusion to give you clarity, confidence, and straight-up real talk. Hosted by Molly Rosenblum, family law attorney, fierce advocate, and the one you want in your corner when it all hits the fan. Each week, we'll break down the legal, the emotional, and the unexpected so you can take back control. Because smart decisions start with straight answers.
Welcome to The Difficult Divorce, the podcast that helps you navigate one of the most overwhelming, emotional, and confusing times of your life, divorce. I'm Anthony from the Rosenblum Allen Law Firm, and I'm your co-host. Each week, I sit down with Nevada divorce attorney Molly Rosenblum to help bring you clarity, confidence, and direction during your divorce journey. Today's episode is all about what you need to know before filing for divorce in Nevada, what the process looks like, what to avoid, and how to prepare. Let's dive in.
Thanks a bunch, Anthony, for the intro, and happy to be here on The Difficult Divorce today. Let's start with the basics and what divorce actually looks like in Nevada. So as many of you know, Nevada is a no-fault divorce state. That means you don't need to prove infidelity or that your spouse did anything wrong in order to get divorced. You just have to be able to tell the court that you are no longer compatible in marriage or that your marriage just isn't working and you want a divorce. So the most common reasons for divorce in Nevada are incompatibility or living apart. When you're filing for a divorce in Nevada, the process is pretty straightforward. Filing a divorce starts with the filing of a petition if it's an agreed upon divorce or with a complaint. So just like with a car accident, the process starts by filing a complaint for divorce. And then the next thing that happens is the other party has to be served with the complaint, and that's referred to as service of process. Once the opposing party is served, then they have 21 days to answer the complaint. If they don't answer the complaint, you're in a period of what's called default. And if the opposing party refuses to participate in the case, doesn't answer, then you can win your case by simply submitting a decree. In most cases, though, the other party is going to answer. They are going to file a response. And from there, you enter what's called the discovery phase. You can try to negotiate your case during that period, and if you can settle the case, then you can submit a decree of divorce, at which time you are divorced. If you cannot settle the case, then the court will set your case for a trial. And once you have your trial, the judge will make decisions about your case, dividing up your property, and what happens next, and then at that point you will be divorced. So one of the biggest questions we get is, how long does it take to get a divorce in Nevada? And the answer to that question is that it really depends. If you can settle your case, divorces can happen within a matter of days if you can do a joint petition. If you cannot settle a case, then it can take months or even years to get divorced. It really just depends on you and your spouse and how quickly and efficiently you want a divorce. For people who are fighting it out and want to argue over every little thing, it can take months or years to get the divorce process complete.
Molly, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make early on into the process?
A lot of people come to us after they've made some choices that unfortunately complicate their case. So some of the biggest mistakes we see in a Nevada divorce include hiding assets, moving out too soon, letting emotions drive decisions, or skipping legal advice altogether. So let's kind of break those down one by one. Hiding assets. So this happens when a spouse decides they're not going to be forthcoming or give all of their financial information in a divorce. And what we can tell you is that judges do not look kindly on this. Someone who's trying to hide assets can damage their credibility in court. It can drag the process out, and in the end, they can end up paying tons of attorney fees. So our advice to people getting a divorce who think that maybe they want to try to hide something and get away with it is don't do it. It's never worth it in the end. Chances are you're not going to get away with it, and you're going to damage your credibility with the court. The next thing is moving out too soon. So It's always harder to get back into your place or your home if you've left the home. If you truly cannot be in the home because of safety reasons, or you feel like the other person is just erratic and it's going to put your safety or your children's safety at risk, then obviously you have to leave. But if you simply just leave the home with the idea that you're going to get back in it later, that can sometimes turn out to be a huge mistake. And it's always harder to get back into the house after you've left. And it also can affect your relationship with your children. If, for example, you leave the home with the idea that, hey, I'm going to get joint custody later, but I'm not going to see my kids right away, that can always backfire because the other side can argue that you left the home. The next thing that we see people make huge mistakes with is letting their emotions drive divorce. So again, Nevada is a no-fault divorce jurisdiction. The court cannot divide your assets and debts based on who was the better spouse. And a lot of times we see folks that, they're going to go out and spend every dollar, or they're going to make it so the other person can't get that money. And they're angry because maybe their spouse had an affair, or maybe their spouse spent more money during the marriage and now they're getting divorced. And so they would just want to make it so the other person can't get something. And that's being emotional. And our courts don't look at divorce with emotion. The job of our court is to look at what are the assets and debts, what are they worth, and how do we divide them. And so when we have folks making decisions out of emotion, it tends to complicate the case, and it tends to drag it out longer and make it more expensive. And again, it all just comes back to that credibility with the court. Finally, the last thing we see is folks who just don't listen to legal advice. If you get guidance early on, even if you don't want to pay a lawyer, just getting that little bit of legal input could be the difference between getting everything you want out of the divorce and getting completely screwed in the end. So we feel like these are probably the 4 biggest mistakes people make. If you're not sure and you think, oh, lawyers, it's just not worth it. There are plenty of free places to go to talk to an attorney. People offer free consultations. Sometimes it's just worth it to get that little peace of mind and know you're doing it right than it is to try to go without the legal advice. So we would say these are the 4 biggest things, the 4 mistakes that people can avoid that will help them save time, money, and a lot of unnecessary stress.
So for someone just now thinking about divorce, what are some steps that they can take right now to protect themselves?
So anyone thinking about getting a divorce can take some steps to help protect themselves prior to filing. And again, 4 things that people can do that will make the divorce process a lot smoother, a lot faster, and probably a lot cheaper. So the first thing is start gathering your financial information right away. This means tax returns, bank statements, credit card statements, paycheck stubs, mortgage information, anything financial. The more information that you can get your hands on the earlier, the better and more efficient your divorce is going to be. The next thing you can do to prepare yourself for divorce is to start thinking about what your next step is. Where are you going to live? How are you going to pay your bills? Are you going to keep your car, or are you going to have to sell it? Are you going to get your stock accounts? How are you going to take care of your kids? What days are you going to see them? Start planning for those things. Start thinking about, what does my life look like once my divorce is final? You're not going to have that other person to split bills with or help pick up the kids or, to do the grocery shopping. So how are you going to plan your day? Those are things that you can do right now if you're thinking about the process and trying to get divorced. Those are things that you can do to help make the process easier once that divorce day comes. Obviously, being a lawyer, the third thing you can do is schedule a consultation with an attorney. Even if you don't have any intention of hiring a lawyer to get the divorce process done, talking to a lawyer, understanding what your legal rights are, understanding how the process works, even if it's outside of this podcast, it's a good idea to get professional help no matter where you are. Finally, my big suggestion to anybody going through the divorce process is to build that support system. Friends, family, therapy. Divorce is a big deal. It is the death of a relationship. It can be extremely emotionally difficult, and having that support system in place can be a huge, huge sense of relief. So the more organized and informed you are, the better off you'll be as things unfold.
Well, we've had clients ask, should I stop contributing to joint accounts or start separating my finances if I'm planning to file? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Obviously, don't do anything drastic without legal advice. Courts can see a sudden shift in finances as a manipulation, and that you're trying to avoid joint responsibilities by siphoning off your money somewhere else. So our recommendation is that you talk to an attorney before changing anything. But in the end, you need to protect yourself. Again, that's where good, solid legal advice comes in. Well, that's it for today's episode of The Difficult Divorce. If you found today's conversation helpful, please hit subscribe and leave a review. It really helps others find the show. And if you're ready to talk about your own situation, visit us at www.rosenblumlawlv.com to schedule a consultation with us. We'll see you next time. And remember, divorce is hard. We make it easier.
You've been listening to The Difficult Divorce. Follow, review, and share if this helped cut through the noise. Find more tools and real talk on our website at rosenblumlawlv.com. And be sure to tune back in for the next episode. Because in divorce, what you don't know will cost you.